Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting in order with six members present. And we get a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd make that motion.
Second. We have a motion by Bill, a second by Brian to approve the agenda for the evening. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, I'm reading off of that, by the way, because this is still loading.
Okay.
There
There we go.
No, don't start that. Okay. The
I move that we approve the consent agenda as well.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. And motion carries 6-0. Okay. We have several guests who wish to address the board this evening. I would remind all of you that we're going to give each of you about 5 minutes. If there are several of you here to address the same issue, and when we can declare a spokesperson, that would be great. And I see there's 1, 2. Yeah. Looks like three people here to talk about teacher negotiations and salaries. And so if you have the opportunity to select a spokesperson, that would be great. Also, I would caution and remind you that here in public session, we cannot individually name teachers or students. So please keep your comments general in nature.
Can I identify specific board members?
Only if
You're a
it's-
public figure, Bill.
All right.
Okay. And again, one last reminder. We understand that several of you are here to talk about teacher negotiations and salaries and such. Obviously, we're in a situation in the state where it would be nice to be able to have an open checkbook and write the salaries that we all know you all deserve. The state doesn't give us that option. So we're doing the best we can with what we have available to offer, so I'll pass that comment out ahead of time. Other than that, we will sit and listen, and you may have the floor as your turn comes up. The first one on my list is Mr. Kevin Snyder. Timer? Okay. And we do have a timer running, so.
Okay. Hello, my name is Kevin Snyder, and I live at 1131 Ash. I'm here tonight to urge the school board to settle salary negotiations with district teachers and accept their proposal. My wife Lori is a third grade teacher at Lincoln, and we have 2 grown children who products of the USD 290 school system. Both of our daughters attended K through 12 and both graduated with honors from Ottawa High School. Several of you know me from many years I was on the Eisenhower Site Council. I've lived across the street from Ottawa High School for 21 years, and I can tell you our high school teachers put in many extra hours on the weekends and holidays. As a matter of fact, I was mowing last night, and there were still several cars out front at 7 o'clock on a Sunday evening. On Labor Day, I felt guilty because my wife needed to spend most of her holiday at the at the school, so I volunteered to help her a few hours in the afternoon. I was not surprised to see many other teachers at Lincoln also spending their holiday away from their families. For many years, I've personally seen the dedication and sacrifice of our teachers that have given to USD 290. As a matter of fact, I like to tease my wife, instead of her being a football widow, I'm a teacher's widower. Our teachers work very hard, and they do not ask for much in return. I again urge you to support our teachers and accept their salary proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Harold Winger. Mr. Winger, you're up.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity of addressing you tonight. First of all, I want to say thank you to the board for your service and for your hours of volunteer effort, and to the teachers that are representing here tonight for their hours and dedication of service. Whereas the district is basically in a no growth on the revenue, we all know that is the situation. It's the choices that we make that I rise tonight to discuss. And the priorities where we decide to spend our money also sends a message. It's my personal opinion that we need to set those priorities into the classroom and directly affect the students that we're raising. In the past years, we've asked educators to make sacrifices, and I'm sure as I stand here tonight, in the future years, we'll ask them to make sacrifices as well in the future. In the current negotiations, the way I understand it, it boils down to $14.96 a month per teacher on a base salary. For those that have been teaching longer, obviously slightly higher. Of course, that is if Mrs. Figgins' fourth grade math still applies today. Granted, we have teachers that have other steps and other columns, and I'm not a wizard in the whole deal, nor do I pretend to be. But anyway, I'm just working on the fundamentals that I see before me. Furthermore, with a flat budget, you have to make choices, and you have to make hard choices. And I grant that, and I think compromise is the spirit of what the board and OEA has done in the past. For example, me, I'm willing to sacrifice future vehicle purchases and mower purchases, defer them for a year or two to show my willingness to sacrifice. Furthermore, a few vacancies along the way for support staff is also examples that I'm willing to show for compromise. Basically, the way I look at it is if you take your salary structure and you spread your salary out, I know you won't be surprised to find that with the teachers starting out at $35,898, going up to what the top administrator and supports are making, that the bulk of the teachers fall to the left of that column and bulk of the support staff falls to the right of that column, as it would be in City Hall, where we find 23 salaried people making an average of $73,000 dollars per person. So my point being is, I think it's great we pay people well. I'm not up here tonight to say one group ought to get favored over the other. I'm actually up here tonight to say we ought to support all of our personnel, whether they're in the classroom or in the support positions. I'm just asking that as you set priorities, I think it's okay to send a message to our teachers to say, we'll show you our support, and then yes, somewhere along the lines you have to say no, and we just need to make those hard choices. So thank you.
Okay, Megan Morris.
All right, I'm Megan Morris. I'm the president of the Ottawa Education Association and live here in Ottawa. As the association leader, but more importantly as a teacher, I want to resolve this contract issue. We're not trying to be difficult to get along with. When you look at the cost of living increase in the last year alone, it's almost comical that we're fighting tooth and nail for 0.5% raise, when according to the CPI, we would need 1.5% raise to even break even. In the big scheme of things, it seems like such a trivial amount for each individual, but it's really not. You see, we are consistently being asked to do more with less. We are asked to give more and more personal time to keep up with lesson plans, Common Core, BYOC, integrating new technology into our classroom, book studies, and the list goes on and on. This is extra time away from our personal lives, our family, and our outside interests. And each year, I continue to spend more money out of my own pocket for supplies for the classroom. You know, those extra things that we as teachers do so our kids can have a little bit of fun while they're being stretched as far as they possibly can to produce those acceptable test scores. I read something the other day that made me laugh. It talked about how teachers are one of the few professions that steal things from home to take to school. That's so true. My point with all this is that teachers work long hours, not 7:30 to 3:30 like so many think we work. And we work hard, and we put our hearts and our souls into our jobs every day so that students learn and they feel valued, and yes, we even make sure that they feel loved. All we want in return is to be able to support our families and ourselves with a little dignity and not to be groveling for 0.5% raise. I truly feel that this small amount is that important. It will boost morale. It will let our teachers know that they are valued and appreciated. I hope that you'll consider what you hear here tonight, and I hope that you truly discuss the effect that this will have on our teachers. I hope that you rethink your position before this long and costly fact-finding process sucks up any more of our energy and our morale and our district finances with the fact-finding. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Robin Stewart.
My name's Robin Stewart. I teach first grade at Lincoln Elementary and have been employed by the district for 14 years now. I originally came back to my hometown to teach after graduating from Pittsburgh State with the intention of it only being temporary. My plan was to teach a few years in Ottawa and to get some experience and then to transfer to the metro area. My experience has been so positive that I have never followed through with my original plan and now have 2 children also attending Lincoln. We live in Gardner, Edgerton, and live a half mile from Edgerton Elementary School. Although it would be convenient for my children and I to work and attend that school, I've always felt like Ottawa was where I needed to be. I'm currently going back to school at Mid-America and will be graduating in spring with a master's degree in technology. This decision was made because I needed hours to recertify and I was getting close to being frozen on the pay scale. I'm glad that I made this decision because it has certainly impacted my students' learning and has allowed me to implement some new technology tools within our school. But because of the demand of attending school, working full-time, raising 2 boys, and my husband working a job that required 70 hours a week, I was struggling to keep up. This summer, my husband took a job working less hours and less pay so he could be around to help out more. His pay decrease was not a concern because I was confident with the number of hours and another year of experience, I would be moving down and over on the pay salary schedule. And well, here we are. I now know this is probably not going to happen, and my family and I will be making some sacrifices because of it. I'm uncertain, have a hard time understanding how a 0.5% increase is keeping us from coming to an agreement. How can a district trusted with a large budget not be able to afford a 0.5% raise for our teachers? Something seems wrong with this picture. I, along with many other teachers, feelings as though we have a few people on this board who are a little out of touch with our responsibilities. Our job is much more than just making sure all students are making academic growth. I would encourage each and every one of you to spend some time in our buildings, talking with our teachers and watching what goes on in a day. You might realize that we are worth the time and energy to find the funds to make this happen. Make this a priority. Put the money where it matters most. We are the ones who are working and making a difference in these children's lives. Thanks.
Dana Bridges.
I'm Dana Bridges. I teach at Lincoln Elementary, and I've been there. This is my 16th year. I live down by Central Heights, but my husband and I made a decision to request our children come to Lincoln Elementary where I was teaching. And I have never regretted, nor will ever regret that decision. We're talking about budgets, and so I'm here to talk a bit about my budget. And just a few facts that I wanted to share. Fact 1, I love what I do. God put me on this earth to be a mother, a wife, and a teacher. In order to continue being a dedicated teacher, I have to continue my education, which for every teacher totals approximately $1,200 out of our own personal budgets. Fact 2, for many teachers, we are frozen on the pay scale. And in order for us to keep up with the cost of living and to support our families, I have to go back to school to get a master's degree, which I am currently doing. Seeking this master's degree is costing my family $13,527 out of my personal budget. Fact 3, my husband of 19 years, Kevin, and my daughters Morgan, age 13, and Madison, 11, and extended family are making sacrifices in order to make it possible for me to continue my education. I hear on a weekly basis from my 11-year-old daughter, and I quote, "I really wish you were done with these classes, Mommy, so you could spend more time with us." Fact 4, the dedication I have for my students, my parents, and my profession, and my family's sacrifices are worth 12 cents an hour. At Lincoln, we believe that we are a place where every student is welcomed, valued, educated, encouraged, and loved, climbing the stairs to a better life. Why not do the same for our teachers? Thank you for your time.
Natasha Jenkins.
My name is Natasha Jenkins. I teach at Ottawa High School. My husband and my daughter and I have resided in Ottawa for the last 8 years. I believe that I speak for my colleagues when I say that we went into this profession not for the money we make, but the change we inspire. That being said, the work we do is not hourly, not even daily. We give of our time, our patience, and our resources. All that we give creates a better tomorrow for our kids, our school district, and our community. By allowing a wage increase, our district is not squandering money. They are investing in their community, letting teachers know that they are wanted, appreciated. If we really hope to invest in the future of USD 290, we will invest in our teachers, showing them that they are valued and should stay, providing students a level of consistency in their education. For many of our students, the only consistency that they see on a regular basis. I stand with my colleagues in overwhelming support that a fair contract can be accomplished and that a 0.5% raise is reasonable recognition of the work we do, a sign of the investment our board is willing to make on behalf of its patrons. Thank you.
Norman Woody.
I don't know whether I should speak or not. Maybe we should give them that raise. Maybe they should work 11 months out of a year. I have great expectations. Our new superintendent helped to remove a problem from a school my son complained. Thanks for solving that situation. Situation is much better. I'm trying to understand why each of you are on this board. I come to most of the meetings and kind of wonder what your motive is. I hope it is not to have your name on a plaque as we enter the schools. Those plaques are distasteful and should not be displayed. It is nothing more than vanity. I visit the schools and I just can't believe that. We're paying for the schools. Another issue is the fence around the school is good, but to prohibit the kids from playing in that yard is dead wrong. We are meeting in a school that was stolen from the kids. It was a community school, but it was so the administration can work in a fancier building. Now we're short of a school. The Goppert Center is the most practical solution to correct this dreadful wrong of killing the Eisenhower School. Closing that school took away a community school. In my work experience in corporations, they would do time studies before changes were made, especially shorting the education week, Wednesday half days. In a time study, certainly evidence would show time is wasted on cell phones and even by the computers. I just love the computers, but it's a good place for shopping online, which is done, I know, and playing games and gossiping. computers store this information, and we would be astonished if there were an investigation to show that there was what was being done during schoolwork. I have faith in our new superintendent, and she has integrity, and if she does many things as before, and they'll blame her, and she too will become just a memory. Thank you.
Jerry Harden.
I am Jerry Harnden, simply a patron at 1706 South Ash. I'm also a former school board member and president, and that, along with 47 cents, will buy you coffee at Kramer's on any morning. You don't think that's funny? It's the truth. I would simply want to add to what two of the gentlemen back here, Mr. Wingert and Mr. Snyder, had indicated, that we do owe a tremendous debt to these teachers. I don't know what the specific blockades or barriers there are to this very small increase. I happen to believe that everyone really should have a minimum of a cost of living increase in whatever job that they're doing. I know we've had some rough years in the past few, and that may have been difficult. I don't know what the barrier would be in 2013, because where I stand, there's a considerable amount of improvement in what all is happening, not only in the country, but in our own community. I guess I'd also add that what I probably have as the biggest recommendation for sharing any thoughts here would be the fact that I have been married to a school teacher for 50 years. And I am here to tell you there may be a very occasional or rare sandbagger in the school system. There is in every other walk of life, I'm sure. I've been a pastor for 50 years, and some of my colleagues don't do any more than they absolutely have to. But I know that the teacher I've been married to all this time, who spent 20 years in this district, along with so many others that I know so well, Linda, so many of these others that are out here, they deserve this raise. And I don't understand. Maybe the board can make it more clear to the community as to why this impasse is taking place. But I think that it's absolutely ludicrous that you would do this at this time. These people not only put in a full day's work, as I say, Mr. Woogie, there might be an occasional exception. But I'd think for every one who's sandbagging, there are at least 9 or 19 who are doing the things that this gentleman mentioned about being here many hours after school, hours before. And as one who's had one come home every day from teaching, many, many hours at home. So what is it? What's the real block here? Let's get it done. As a taxpayer, I'm more than willing to, if we need a little more taxes, charge me. I want these teachers working. Thank you.
H.J. Hystad.
Good evening. My name is H.J. Hystad. I'm the UNISERV Director with the Kansas National Education Association, who works with the KNEA members here in Ottawa. I appreciate the board's time and attention this evening and this opportunity to speak. I don't have the good fortune of the long history here in the Ottawa School District that all the previous speakers are fortunate enough to have. I've been here a short time, only 2.5 months, which in my world is just enough time to stop getting lost when I'm trying to find my way places. I didn't have the ability to watch all of the negotiation sessions. I was only able to attend the last session and then the mediation session. My understanding is that up until that final bargaining session when salary was discussed, things had moved along pretty well using an interest-based bargaining model. Numerous agreements were reached. Both sides were relatively happy with the process. And it's a shame that things have broken down in the manner that they have. While I've only been here in Ottawa for 2.5 months, I have had the ability to work in Kansas for 6 years. And during that time, I've worked a number of fact findings around the state. And while I don't know everything there is to know and no one can predict the future, what I can tell you is from my 6 years of experience, fact findings tend not to go well for either side. They create animosity. They're difficult. They're hard. They're certainly not enjoyable. There's a reason that we haven't had a fact-finding hearing here in Ottawa in over 20 years. What we're talking about here is a relatively small amount of money, as has been alluded to. If my memory is serving me correctly, the school district has roughly a $30 million budget, and we're talking about $50,000. At the beginning, before anybody said anything, the board president made a statement that financial times are hard, especially when we're talking about a school district. And I think we'd be foolish to deny that. Times are hard. Economic situations are difficult right now. But if the naysayers, if the pessimists among us, looking at the future financial situation of the state are accurate, it's not going to be the $50,000 that's the problem for the school district. It's going to be the $1 million that the state takes back from us when the tax situation falls apart. Teachers work hard. They have an important job, and they have a difficult job. And one of the things that gets them through the day is the positive morale that they can have when they know that they're appreciated by the district. Not when they're just told that they're appreciated by their employer, but when they're shown that they're appreciated. The difficult job that teachers have, I think it's in all of our best interest for teachers to be able to devote 100% of their time, their emotion, and their energy towards performing that job and educating the children that we send to them each day. And as we've listened to the educators who have approached this mic tonight, I think we've heard that they're suffering emotional tolls. I think we've heard that there's a possibility that they're not necessarily feeling appreciated. I think it's important for us to do whatever we can to allow the educators, not just in this room, but throughout the school district, to devote all of their time, their attention, their emotion to the students in our school district. And I think that one way we can accomplish that is by reaching an agreement, getting them a contract, and letting that part be done and put it behind us. Thank you again for your time.
I think that says Elizabeth Louderman.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Louderman, and I teach 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary. I come before you today to request an increase in pay for the teachers of USD 290. Many people are surprised when they become friends with a teacher at how long and intense the hours are. It appears to be a 7:30 to 4 o'clock job. But I am here to tell you that I do love my job and I do love my students, but it is at times a sacrifice for my husband and my children because of the stress and the overtime hours that must be put in. There are times I pick my 3-year-old daughter up at 5 o'clock and I take her back to the school so that I can continue my work into the evening. I go in each evening, or each weekend, which requires me to miss spending time with my family. I am not paid for any of these hours. I work these hours because I want to provide the best education to those entrusted to my care. At times, it is quite stressful, and my professor in college said that teaching is the 3rd most stressful profession in the United States, with doctor being number 1 and air traffic controller being number 2. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Kathy Laws.
Well, I'm your oldest speaker, I think, of the teachers.
You can pull that down towards you a little bit.
And the shortest. Facts are facts. My name is Kathy Laws. I live here in Ottawa, and I have since 1979. I'm a mother. a wife, a neighbor, a citizen of Ottawa, a member of Sacred Heart Church, and a kindergarten teacher at Lincoln School. And my husband, Mark, has taught at Ottawa High School for 34 years. We have 3 daughters who grew up here in Ottawa and attended Ottawa schools because we believed they could get an excellent education in the Ottawa schools with teachers who care and challenge their students to reach their potential, and live in a community that encourages a variety of activities for families. Being an education-minded family makes us aware of the needs of students and their families in our community, from the youngest to the graduates. Having been here 34 years makes us consider Ottawa our hometown. We have a vested interest in the community and its citizens. Some think that teachers don't work hard and they have 3 months off. That makes us upset. I hope that you know that there's much more to teaching than arriving at 7:30 in the morning and leaving at 4. Most teachers arrive at school many days to weeks before the contract states that we need to be there, and they stay several hours extra each week to do the things needed to provide the best learning environment and materials needed for their students to be successful. Many take their work home every night and weekend to help their students and be prepared for the next day. Many stay extra hours each day to get things ready for their students, doing things that can't be done from home. I tell you this not because I want you to feel sorry for us, but to inform you that you have a community of teachers who are dedicated to doing whatever it takes to help their students do their best, believe in themselves, and be good, caring citizens and future parents and workers in our community. I urge you to show teachers that you respect their hard work and that you appreciate their efforts. We believe in our students. Won't you believe in us? Thank you.
Okay. I believe that's all the people that have been listed as requesting to speak, and I thank all of you for your thoughts. Just as a matter of reference for everybody, though, one thing I would like to point out, since I have been involved in the negotiations process since its beginning, is that and when it came to salary, the board said yes twice. Each time we said yes, the Teachers Association came back and asked for more. At some point, you have to say no in terms of good conscience for the district. So we'll move on from there. Okay. Boards or presentations reports. Let's have the Lincoln Roofing Project go first, because those gentlemen are waiting patiently.
All right, Lincoln is at a point where we are looking to reevaluate structural conditions. I've got a structural engineer I want to bring in Wednesday morning. The conditions were different than what were on the existing drawings that were supplied by the construction documents when that building was built. So we've hit some delays and are looking to get corrected documents out to rebid this project.
You want to, Greg?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. You said you've got a structural problem. What it is it? And you said as-built are different than what was built.
Right.
So they were delivered differently than what was built. So what is the issues right now on what was built wrong versus?
Well, I don't know if it was built wrong. Don't know if there were change orders sent in with the original construction or addendums or what have you. But from the documents I reviewed, it showed it had a structural deck under it, and what is existing is a structural standing seam across purlins where there is no deck underneath the roof assembly.
So, in dumb hospital administrator language, they put the purlins this way, and they didn't put a sheeting across it this way to have it nailed all the way
Correct.
and supported all the way. So it's basically
it.
like a vertical shake roof going sideways instead of vertical.
It's more like
There's
a
not-
Butler building,
building.
yeah, where they
Okay.
throw up the red iron and then throw the panels across the purlins.
So then what was supposed to go across the purlins?
Well,
Was it steel or was it wood or
it
what
was steel decking is what was shown on the original drawings. And then it is turned up that there was wood on the canopies, and then it was no decking at all on the main structure. It was a structural standing seam.
So would one say that they used the wood as expedient, or do you think, from what you've seen in the documents so far?
Hard to say what they did from what I've seen there. Without seeing all documents, and very limited on Lincoln. Everything matched up at Garfield, but Lincoln was just limited on what we had to access, no addendums.
And just to clarify, you have all the documents that we have available.
Well, correct.
So that if there are if there were changes made, the documentation does not exist, to our knowledge.
To our knowledge, it does not, unless the consultant from St. Louis has any that has not been returned. I did find some in the basement at Gould Evans that I've brought back to the district, but nothing really for Lincoln. It was Garfield mostly.
So you said you're bringing in a consultant.
Well, a structural engineer.
So is there a quote on that, Doctor, or have we gotten a quote, or how are we doing time and material?
It should be less than $1,000. It's not gonna be that expensive.
And our experts that we've had before can't give us the advice with their expertise in the business?
Not without a structural license.
Then what will be the next steps after this?
Our thinking is, after talking with Greg this afternoon, and Dr. Kraus talked with Mike Norris, our attorney, and my recommendation is to have the structural engineer come in, take no action this evening, ask whatever questions you have of Mr. Leslie, and then with more information available to us, make the decision on October 15th, which is October 14th, I'm sorry, is the next board meeting. And so we'll have more information, and we'll have legal advice by then in terms of should it go out for bid again.
One of the questions that I asked Mr. Leslie earlier this evening, I had a chance to visit with him, and that was what was done subpar industrial norm, or was it just non-spec? And his indication to me was that it was non-spec, not subpar industrial norm. So.
Well, and I think at this point, we got more of a settlement than we could have ever gotten in the past. What is the potential budget for this? 5,000, 10,000, what do you think?
Additional, you think? I don't think it's any additional myself. It's just a matter of running all the calculations to make sure it can support the new assembly.
Oh, so you're thinking we can get a structural engineer to give us the review, does his calculations, give us the stamp, and then we can go on with the plan that was outlined?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my assessment. But I didn't, with all the problems we've had over there, I just think it was a good time to halt it and reassess and make sure we've got all bases covered.
What about timeline in case we have to do something else? If we have to rip it off and put some structural support underneath the current structure?
Well, we'll know a lot more. I should have a structural report done in 10 days or less, so we'll know a lot more then.
Can I ask who we're using for structural?
Yeah, it is Wayne at Bob D. Campbell's the company, but the engineer that's coming is Wayne. And I'm going to bring him in and introduce him to everybody at the district Wednesday. Let me find his name. Oh yeah, Wayne Davis.
Okay.
With Bob D. Campbell.
Well, we want to do it right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, you've had enough issues over there. And
Well,
with
We were given a document that had add items. Is that, that total is like $135,000.
yeah, in my opinion, those were way unreasonable and unnecessary.
Okay.
So once we get the structural engineer report.
I have to intervene on that. Those are our numbers.
You have to recognize.
They're real numbers.
Pardon me, sir, but who are you?
I'm with the one that said those numbers.
So could you share us with your name? So you're with Boone Brothers? Okay.
I'm just here to listen. I don't want to be bashed over.
Okay. Well, obviously, that's something that will take place in discussions.
So our intention is to have the structural engineer come in on Wednesday, and we'll look at the report in about 10 days when we get it back. Dr. Kraus and I will meet with the structural engineer and with Mr. Leslie on Wednesday afternoon, and I will send out some information Friday in board updates, and then an executive summary of the engineer report when we get that in 10 days. And then we'll make a decision on the 14th of October.
Sounds great. Any other questions?
For Mr. Leslie? Okay, thank you very
All
much.
right, yep, sounds great, thank you.
Okay, now we'll go back up to 5.01, Community Engagement Facilities Timeline. Dr. Stroh.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to revisit our facilities timeline. We're proceeding ahead in terms of working with our building site councils and collecting information from each of the building staffs about the facility needs in each building. And we know that there are greater needs in some than others, but there are needs in every single building. And so the last time we talked, the facilities timeline that you see in front of you was basically the same. There were some additions. I believe we moved up the large group meeting a little bit, and we added selecting an architect firm and working with architects. Those were the three big things that we added, that you asked me to add last board meeting. So I would ask you to look at that, take a couple of minutes to review that. I'd be happy to add whatever else needs to be added. I know that as we think through timelines and we have another chance to look at them, that other things occur to us. So if you have things to add, I would certainly be happy to add those.
Anybody have anything they want added, changed, modified?
No, that looks good. Has anything been put out to the buildings, to the site councils, to staff about identifying needs yet? I mean, is that process started?
Yes, I've attended some of the site councils and talked about what our needs are, and they've begun, in every building, they've begun a list of things that are priorities and just a list of things that is needed in each building. And that's really our first step. And as I looked at at our communications web, if you will, there are many great things in place in this district and in this community that's going to be very helpful. There's the Community Action Coalition that has parents and educators and so on, and that group is very aware of the needs not only in the community but within our buildings. The same is true for many of our other groups. I know that each of you serve on different boards within the community, and so those kinds of connections are going to be very important as we move forward in collecting information, collecting ideas, and sharing thoughts about our facilities and what will ultimately be the big step. We know that we have a deadline of November 4th, 2014. What we don't know is exactly what that will look like. What kind of bond will it be? What are our expectations? What is our vision for our kids now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Those are the things that these committees, both small and large, will have to work through in the next few months.
And I can say, just as a matter of experience, I know that Dr. Cobbs did a really effective presentation to the site council at the high school about the facility and the needs of the facility and allowed input. So I know that process is undertaking, at least at one level.
Mm-hmm. So if you have no more questions, I would ask that you approve this facility's timeline.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the timeline as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the timeline.
Thank you.
Any other
Nice job.
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Mr. Robinson.
I think a couple of board meetings, Linda had asked as part of another discussion about when we were going to be revising grade cards as part of the implementation of Common Core. And I think this is probably the first step. And I think part of what I want to make sure the board understands is our knowledge of Common Core and our teachers' knowledge of Common Core grows every day, every week, as we get more information from the state on what's expected over the next several years. So what we've done at this point, I believe, is our best using the knowledge that we have at this time to try to adapt our grade cards to make them fit what we believe Common Core is asking our kids to do. And as an outsider sitting in on the teacher discussions with these grade cards, there were some really positive conversations that went on about specifically what different standards are asking our kids to do. And so I won't go through all of it. What I will do is give you kind of a highlight at each grade level of what's been changed. And I believe, unless I'm wrong, that these were sent to you ahead of time. So if you have more questions, please feel free to ask. Starting with kindergarten, the only section kindergarten made changes to is page 2. And really what we're seeing at K1 and 2 are the largest changes are coming on the math side of things. On the reading side of things, most of our kindergarten grade card is tied real closely to our MTSS expectations and to just basic learning to read expectations. So there were no real big changes made to that section. The math part, there were quite a few. You'll notice the splitting of 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional shapes. The previous grade card didn't do much with that. I mean, that's an area that you'll see at every grade card has been real specific in the standards as to what the expectation is. Some of the other things you'll see is an actual expectation on the grade card of addition and subtraction at kindergarten. We are seeing some of those skills shifting further down than where they were previously expected for them to learn. At first grade, was probably the biggest overhaul to their grade card of any of the three. Basically what they tried to do was to align with Common Core, but also to try to take some of what they had done and to put it in as parent-friendly language as they could to hopefully make sure when we're sending this home, we're trying to give a clear picture of what their child is learning and where their growth is. Again, very few changes on the reading side of things. I think the old first grade grade card, only 3 of the items that were listed aligned with Common Core expectations. So major changes there. Some of them I'll mention quickly. One of them being previously most of what they were doing as far as counting, recognizing numbers, and writing numbers went to 100. You'll notice there's an expectation now that that's to 120. And again, that's because of the changes in Common Core. The other thing I would note throughout this document, you'll see the word fluently, and that's something we'll be doing some more professional development in the future with. We're not just talking doing things fast. Both on the reading side and on the math side, there were a couple of really good articles that have just come out on how this is more a matter of getting kids to know and understand things and to be able to do it more efficiently so they're not putting out more energy. It doesn't necessarily mean quick and timed, and so I wanted to make sure that was clear to the board. Some of the other areas, they've just gotten more specific. Fractions were on our previous grade card, but they've actually narrowed down based on the standards what needs to be mastered in first grade. Again, 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional shapes come up again, so you're seeing some trends. The other area you'll notice, I believe it's on page 2, had to do with written language. And there is a section there where they're expecting all students to write 3 different types of writing at first grade, a narrative piece, an opinion piece, an informative piece. And that'll be a big shift for our first grade. A lot of those we're doing. pieces of it, but putting a more comprehensive writing plan will be something our reading cadre is starting to look at, and hopefully we'll be coming back to the board in the spring with a better approach to that. The second grade grade card is a little bit of a change in philosophy. The last couple years, second grade has graded using GoEduStar, and they've done letter grades, A, B, C. Both this started as a conversation at the administrative level and then carried down to the teacher level. And I think we were actually pleasantly surprised when we met with our second grade team that they were very receptive to the idea of going away from letter grades and going back to more of a skill-based checklist and being able to give parents a better understanding of what their kids know, similar to kindergarten and first grade. It does align more with Common Core than what we were doing. And I think in the same breath there, hopefully will provide us better communication with parents. The changes from this and the grade card they were using before they switched, because they've only been giving letter grades for 2 or 3 years, there's a few changes there. Some of those have to do with curriculum changes. Our grade card before had very little to do with sight words, vocabulary, and spelling. Spelling in particular, because we were using sit-and spelling, which wasn't graded the same way our Journey's spelling is graded. So those are changes. And then again, the majority of their changes had to do on the math side. And you'll notice as first grade took things to 120, most of their stuff is going to 1,000. And again, some of those other areas that pop up, the Fluently piece comes in there again. There's also a lot of application to theirs. What I would tell you that was most impressive to me looking down at the 3 grade cards that came out of K1-2 is they were done in isolation. And what I mean by that is the kindergarten team sat down and looked specifically at Common Core standards and what they thought was being expected. First and second grade did the same thing, and yet when you look at their grade card, there are some real definite consistencies throughout, which again lets me know how closely they were looking at those standards and trying to tie the work they're doing. I will say this is a big benefit of having those Wednesday afternoons. Not that we have a new grade card to use, but the conversations that went with this grade card are helping us in guiding professional development. They're helping us as far as our teachers having time to actually discuss those individual wordings in the standards and be able to adjust with their teaching. So I think we've come out with a better grade card to use, and our hope would be with board approval would be to put it in place as early as this first quarter this year. And obviously we would need approval tonight to be able to do that. So that's what I would be asking from you all tonight. But do you have questions?
No. Is it my understanding that all this information goes directly to the NSA and the federal government? Is that...
Absolutely. No.
No. CIA is what it is. I think it is amazing how they align the 3 different levels. And also, I want you to know that I would do pretty well up through the middle of first grade, I think. Getting a little shaky.
I'm not sure I'd make it that far. So
Doctor, I got a question. With all the controversy, and I've been through a lot of literature from the school board and the state on the Common Core issue, and we just saw recently the uproar on the East Coast of Common Core. Being a part of public education in Kansas, this looks like we're actually increasing the standards for our children, not dumbing down the standards that we see the rhetoric on television. And to me, it looks like we're asking more out of our kids. And I don't know, could you give us this, because it's very distressing to hear Common Core is a bad 4-letter word, and I'd just like to have an honest dialogue, because it seems like there's quite a few of certain groups that don't believe in this, and to me, it looks like we're headed in the right direction. So please educate me if I'm wrong.
You make a very good point, and I think Josh hit the nail on the head when he said, groups of teachers can work sort of isolated and come up with a pretty aligned document. And I think that is really the power. I think you're absolutely right, Josh. That's really the power of Common Core. You can see, for example, in some of those, as you look at this report card, the second grade report card, when you look at the math, place value to thousands, that isn't part of the old standards. As we've talked about in the past, Common Core is really about not just learning the facts and basic skills, but being able to problem solve and to be able to write effectively. And as Josh said, even in first grade, the expectations for writing is much higher. And you'll notice that the controversy isn't ever really about that these are tougher standards or that teachers are against these standards. I would say that most teachers that I've ever talked to are very much in favor of these standards because they know that this is the best thing for kids. So the controversy comes from, we don't want to do this because the federal government is telling us to do it. You know, I guess I'm not willing to sacrifice our kids because somebody tells me to do something. If it's the right thing for our kids, we should do it. Never once has the federal government said we should do this or tried to collect any information about our kids. So I think that that's just fear-mongering. And I applaud the teachers who worked very hard on these report cards. And I know I've been in a lot of classrooms and I see a lot of great Common Core lessons from preschool all the way through high school. And so I know that it's going on here and teachers are doing a great job. So thank you.
I would say, as a matter of reference, as far as the actual depth and breadth of what the Common Core does, I love Common Core. I do know that, you know, from some of my study, because I read a lot of the counter Common Core stuff, it's not so much that it's a rigorous standard, but there's concern from various groups in the country about the material, especially in the history and science fields that's being taught and how, in the manner in which it's being couched. My personal feeling is that if we are doing good due diligence as board members, administrators, teachers, those issues won't be a factor, but it will require all of us to make sure that we're making sure that the kids are getting what they need and are getting full breadth in terms of especially history. I know history seems to get short-shrifted a lot.
Well, and I think one thing, Kansas has been part of the process all along, because we've been part of that process to develop it with our Department of Ed. So I feel very comfortable with the leadership there, with Dale Dennis and everybody up there. And
As far as being able to define what kids need to know and how they're being graded on, I'm thoroughly impressed with these. They're quality documents. They give parents things they need to know. When you go into a parent conferences with a young guy or a young gal, you say, "What is my kid learning?" And, well, they're doing great in math. What does that mean? This tells you this is what great math looks like. So I applaud the effort.
I move that we accept the grade cards as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We'll give the second to Linda. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Oh, do you want to discuss it?
Yeah, I just had a question. Growing up in the years of Renita Rubric, Ubel, did you guys did you guys all develop some sort of a rubric that would define what exceeds expectations or meets expectations?
I'm glad you asked. A couple things I would mention that have been exciting with the PLC change, the Wednesday afternoon change. One of those has been, and it's caused principals some work in the last week of trying to figure out how to coordinate it, but we've actually had a request from several of our grade levels for more district time, which is a huge step forward for USD 290 and getting both Common Core implemented correctly, but also being able to share all the good ideas across the board. Second grade, I know, has already been working on, or at least there was discussion at their grade level meeting about some rubrics to be able to better assess these things, because obviously when you change from a system where you're trying to calculate letter grades and percentages, you're going to need to do something different. And I know first grade, I can't speak district-wide, but I know there's been a request to look at some common assessments put out from the Lincoln staff. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get everybody together and start to develop some of those things. But I think the grade cards that are here give us a good starting point to be able to build some of those other pieces.
Very good. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving these grade cards signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. How much time do we need? We take 15 we'll take 15 with a break. Okay. Now, would you please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go in executive session for the purposes of discussing matters related to employee-employer negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representative the body, the board return to the open meeting at 8:15 o'clock in this room. The executive session is required to protect the district's right to the confidentiality of negotiating position of public interest.
I didn't hear the last 3 sentences.
It got softer and softer. I mean, we all know what it says, but except for the people.
I'll second that.
I'm sure the mic's got it on the deal, and you can watch it on
You
replay
did
tonight,
great.
Bill.
You did great.
You did
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. What time did you want to go in for?
He said till 8:15.
8:15? 8:15
He
and.
said to invite the.
and-
Invite the doctor and doctor.
Doctor and doctor, okay. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. We'll be back in about 15 minutes.
Chairman, I move that we go back into open session.
We have a motion to come back into open session. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to come back in open session. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.
Mr. President, I move the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing matters relating to employee negotiations, whether or not consulting with the representative body. The board return to the open meeting at 8:30 o'clock in this room. Executive session required to protect the district's interest to the confidentiality of the negotiating position and the public interest.
Second. We have a motion and a second to go back into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Including doctor and doctor.
Including doctor and doctor. Anybody say no? Okay, we're going back in for 10 more minutes.
Mr. President, I move that we go back into open session. We'll second that.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to come back into open session. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Item 7, personnel. I move that we approve the personnel list as presented.
I had that a minute ago. There it is. I'll second that. Brian,
Okay.
I don't want to leave you hanging there, bud.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So we're all digging back into our stuff here. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the personnel list. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, announcements.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few announcements. First, Susan Ward is gone this evening. Her father is having surgery in another state, and so our thoughts are certainly with her. I believe the surgery's tomorrow. And the second thing is, I just wanted to share that the Center on Budget Policy, which is a nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C., came out with a report last week that puts Kansas at one of the highest ranking states in terms of dropping in funding. And we rank only behind Oklahoma, Alabama, and Arizona. We're fourth highest for a drop in funding education. In today's dollars, we've dropped 16.5% since 2008. That's a significant drop. I might add that we do outperform Oklahoma, Alabama, and Arizona by a significant margin. So I think that just speaks to the great work of our teachers and administrators. And then a second announcement, Kirby Cornett will be the USD 290 Horizon Award winner. She is from Eugene Field, and the Horizon Award is given for teachers who have just completed their first year of teaching and show outstanding qualities as a teacher. So congratulations to Kirby. Second. Third. Okay, thank you. So congratulations, Kirby. That's an awesome honor. And then Ottawa High School inducted 25 new members of Honor Society last Wednesday, and that was really an awesome event. Ottawa High School will travel to McPherson and visit with the McPherson District on October 3rd to talk about how they've used the ACT assessments. That's certainly something that we're considering. And then they'll do that in the morning, and in the afternoon, that group of 7 people will visit the Hutchinson Career Tech Ed Academy to see the many different career certification programs that's offered there. And then, if you would just put a note on your calendar, on October 14th is board pictures at 6:40.
Is
Okay.
that so that we can put a plaque in buildings at the front door? Because that would be a good idea, I think.
That's for another picture along the wall.
Oh.
Bill.
Put a picture up like this big. Curious
I thought it was for a bronze plaque.
Okay, and so with that, we know that September 20th was on Friday. And so I would draw your attention to these preliminary results. And I'm almost fearful of showing them because they're about a day old. And we know that our results, our enrollment isn't really set very strongly in stone at all until October 4th, because kids have to attend at least twice. And you'd be surprised the kids that we kind of have to hunt down and make sure are attending at least 2 days, September 20th, and then another day on or before October 1st. So as you look at these numbers, they are preliminary. And so you'll see at the bottom, our head count is 2474. That's how many actual students we have in the district. Many of our kids only count as half. And so our FTE, that's full-time equivalent, is about 2,351. I can tell you that both of these numbers by October 1st will change by a little bit. Hopefully go up instead of down. But you can see all the way from the top, our 4-year-old program, and where our larger grade levels are, and then our non-graded and so on. Our non-graded and many of those we can only count as under a full FTE. So that's another reason why that number is not as clear. And then I gave board members a list of some specific special programs that we have. I didn't share that with the public because those particular kids might be identifiable because the numbers are so small.
Thank you for doing that.
But certainly if you have questions about any of those programs, don't hesitate to email me.
And again, what was our number? How did we end up on our free and reduced?
Free and reduced, you will see, where is that number? I don't have it on there. We have free lunch. We ended up at about 48.9%. And as Dr. Krause and I talked this afternoon, there are some formulas for title and for at-risk that allow you to add free and reduced. If that's the case, then we made the more than 51%. The numbers I gave you here are this year and last year's free, and then you can see where I've added in reduced. So we can count the kids, our reduced kids in with our free kids. We would meet that
51%.
threshold of 51%. So that's a great.
When would we know when we would be able to count that?
When we're finished with the local consolidated plan, which I think is about the middle of October. October 1st. So, yeah.
So we should know something fairly soon on that then.
Well, it'll still come back to our audited count whenever.
Right.
Right.
Because they have to check the paperwork on the free and reduced. It doesn't usually change from what we turn in on bills.
So just to backtrack a little bit, that's a great question, because that if we met that threshold of 51%, we had talked about earlier that would mean additional dollars to the district for at-risk or title funding. And that money is one of those budgets that you have to spend in a certain way. You have to spend on certain kids in certain programs. Professional development, for example, Title I reading, math, the tier intervention materials, and those kinds of things. But certainly that would be very, very helpful. Questions that you might have about enrollment numbers?
So where we're at, we're really down on an FTE count 63,
Yes.
and we're down on regular count, looks like 40, 50.
Yes. That's what it looks like right now.
So that would be a major hit.
How many dollars does that, would that estimate to be a reduction?
Dr. Kraus? Absolutely.
The numbers from Future Visions aren't in there at all.
Right.
If we have the same number of kids at Future Visions, we don't anticipate a large increase or decrease. If we have the same number in Future Visions this year as last year, our total FTE would be down 9. So it's
Okay.
much smaller, it would still be down.
36,000.
So about, yeah.
When you take the 3-year average of that, would cost us 3 FTE.
But I think one of the keys that we look at is when we go back to our statistical planning that we did 4 or 5 years ago, when we did the math on what our growth was going to be, and it was very flat, if you remember that report, and we can pull it back out because there's no reason to redo it, because it was a group out of Gardner, Edgerton, or Olathe that did that analysis. This is a big drop in comparison to just the head count. 'Cause
And the good news is that really big kindergarten class will be full-time next year, and so that'll miss a bump.
And you know, the interesting thing too is I'm counting every single first grader. And sometimes we have a first grader who moves in from a state or has been advanced a grade. And we can't count that first grader as a full 1 FTE unless that first grader has turned 6 on or before August 31st. Once you get past first grade, you're good to go. That just bugs me.
These are bodies.
Yeah.
This is just head count.
Or get to second grade, whichever comes first. So, other questions you might have about enrollment? Again, these are preliminary numbers. Future Visions isn't in there, and some numbers will change a little bit, so. But we'll be pretty close.
One thing it does bring to question, and I'm throwing it out there as something that we as a board need to answer, is we're talking about facilities needs, and I can tell you that the first question I'm going to be asked, I can almost tell you who's going to ask it, is, well, your numbers are going down. Why do you need to do more on your buildings?
That's a great question, and the answer is because we don't teach and learn like we used to teach and learn, and that it is if you thought you had enough space when you were a kid. And what typically happens in communities is that space is designed and then space is shrunk because of money. So the whole thing about Common Core and many of the things that we need to do to help our kids be successful in the future, like more preschool classrooms and more technology and those kinds of things, calls for a lot of space. Career technical education needs to be huge in this district, and we don't have the space for that. Many things that science and performing arts and those kinds of things go beyond just what our numbers are. It's what we want for our kids in the future.
Plus, we have some substandard space currently
do.
being used.
We do.
That's for sure.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Stroh? Any other announcements?
I believe that's it.
Move to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed? And of course, it's 6-0. If you were opposed, you could have just sat here.
You can stay all night.